Today, we're diving into a crisis that's affecting millions of women worldwide: burnout. And I'm not talking about just feeling tired after a long week. I'm talking about a deep, systemic exhaustion that's backed by alarming statistics and hard science. Did you know that nearly 1 in 4 working women report feeling job burnout, according to Deloitte's 2024 Women at Work report? Or that 51% of working women in the U.S. say they feel stressed most of the day, compared to just 39% of men. This isn't just about working harder. There's something deeper happening here. Today, we're uncovering the science behind why working women are burning out at unprecedented rates and what we can do about it. Let's start with the data, because the numbers are staggering. According to Gallup's 2024 research, 51% of working women report feeling stressed a lot of the day. That's 12 percentage points higher than men. But here's where it gets really concerning. Deloitte's survey of 5,000 working women found that nearly 25%, 1 in 4, report experiencing job burnout. That's not just stress. That's chronic exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced professional efficacy. And the American Psychological Association's 2025 Work in America survey reveals that 54% of workers say job insecurity significantly impacts their stress levels, with women disproportionately affected due to career interruptions and wage gaps. So what's driving this crisis? The answer lies in 3 interconnected factors: biological stress responses, invisible labor, and systemic gender bias. Let's break down the science. First, let's talk about what's happening inside your body when you're burned out. When we experience stress, our bodies release cortisol, often called the stress hormone. Now, here's where gender differences become fascinating. Research published in the Industrial Psychiatry Journal found that men and women have varying context-dependent reactivity to specific types of stressors. Men's cortisol spikes more dramatically when facing achievement stressors, while women's cortisol spikes more dramatically when facing social stressors. Additionally, women's cortisol levels can fluctuate based on menstrual cycle phase, pregnancy, and menopause. What does that mean? If stress is not well managed, women's stress response systems may stay continuously elevated. This chronic activation leads to what scientists call allostatic load. Basically, your body's wear and tear from constant stress. A 2020 study in the Journal of Psychosomatic Research examined occupational gender roles and found that women in male-dominated fields showed higher allostatic load markers, including elevated cortisol, increased blood pressure, and inflammatory markers. Your body is literally keeping score. The memory-stress connection. Research from the National Institutes of Health shows that women recall more positive and neutral workplace memories than men during stress. Which sounds good, right? Not quite. This actually means women are processing and ruminating on workplace experiences more deeply, creating a cognitive burden that extends beyond work hours. Lastly, emotional exhaustion and the brain. A 2020 study published in Biomed Research International found that female professors showed significantly higher levels of emotional exhaustion and neuroticism compared to their male counterparts. The researchers linked this to sustained activation of the amygdala, your brain's emotional processing center, combined with reduced prefrontal cortex regulation. Translation? Women's brains are working overtime to manage emotions, process social dynamics, and maintain professional composure, all while the stress response system stays in overdrive. Now let's talk about the next factor, what I call the double shift. And this is where the science gets really eye-opening. The mental load. There's a concept in psychology called mental load or cognitive labor, and research shows women carry the vast majority of it. A 2023 systematic literature review published in BMC Public Health found that women perform the larger proportion of mental labor, especially around childcare and household management. But here's what most people miss. This mental load doesn't stop at home. It follows women into the workplace. Next, emotional labor at work. BBC WorkLife's 2024 investigation called it the extra shift, the unpaid emotional labor expected of women at work. This includes remembering colleagues' birthdays, mediating team conflicts, providing emotional support to coworkers, managing office culture and morale, and taking notes in meetings, even when they're not the junior person. Research from The Lancet Psychiatry in 2022 found that among employed adults, unpaid labor, both at home and at work, is negatively associated with women's mental health, with effects far less apparent for men. Finally, the cognitive emotional overload. A groundbreaking 2022 study in ResearchGate argues that the mental load is a combination of cognitive and emotional labor, and it's this combination that creates overload. You're not just remembering to do things, you're managing the emotions around them, anticipating needs, and carrying the psychological weight of responsibility. Think about it. You're managing project deadlines while mentally tracking your child's school schedule, planning dinner, remembering your partner's doctor appointment, and emotionally supporting your team through organizational changes. Your brain is running multiple operating systems simultaneously, and there's no off switch. Finally, the third contributing factor: systemic gender bias. Here's where systemic issues amplify everything we've discussed. Gender bias isn't just unfair, it's a burnout accelerator. The reward gap. Forbes reported in February 2025 on 3 critical findings. First, women's overtime is rewarded less than men's. When women work extra hours, they receive less recognition, fewer promotions, and smaller bonuses compared to men doing the same. Second, women's efficiency is undervalued. Research shows that when women complete tasks quickly and efficiently, it's often attributed to the task being easy rather than to their competence. Men completing the same tasks quickly are seen as highly skilled. Third, women's fatigue is underestimated. Managers consistently underestimate how tired women are, leading to more work being piled on without adequate support or recovery time. The perfectionism trap. A 2020 study on person-environment fit found that women in male-dominated environments experience higher stress and burnout levels, partly because they feel pressure to prove themselves constantly. This creates what researchers call performance pressure perfectionism, the need to be flawless to be seen as merely competent. The confidence-competence paradox. Research shows that women are often perceived as less confident even when they're more competent. This perception gap means women must work harder to prove their worth, creating additional emotional and cognitive labor. The intersectionality factor. We must acknowledge these effects are magnified for women of color, women with disabilities, and women in lower income brackets. Intersecting identities create compounding stress factors that research is only beginning to fully document. So what do we do with all this information? How can we break this cycle? Here's a suggested, science-backed path forward. As an individual woman, you can try the following suggestions. Boundary setting with biological awareness by understanding your cortisol patterns. Research shows cortisol peaks in the morning and should decline throughout the day. Protect your evening hours. No work emails after 7 p.m. Your body needs this recovery time. Name the invisible labor. Start tracking your mental and emotional labor for 1 week. Write it down, create a task list. Research shows that making invisible work visible is the first step to redistributing it. Next, exercise strategic imperfection. Studies on perfectionism show that good enough work completed on time is more valuable than perfect work that drains you. Practice strategic imperfection in low-stakes situations. Lastly, try stress response regulation evidence-based practices. Deep breathing helps activates parasympathetic nervous system. Regular movement reduces cortisol. Social connection releases oxytocin, which buffers stress, and sleep hygiene allows cortisol reset. On an organizational level, these solutions are recommended. Incorporating equitable flexibility. Research shows flexible work arrangements reduce burnout, but only when they're truly equitable and don't penalize women. Next, utilizing bias training that works. Not just awareness training, but accountability systems that track promotion rates, pay equity, and workload distribution by gender. Also, provide accessible, stigma-free mental health resources and support in the organization, freely available to all employees. Lastly, systemic change. This requires policy changes to employee welfare and HR policies, such as paid family leave, affordable childcare, equal pay enforcement, and workplace protections against burnout-inducing practices. Here's what I want you to take away from this. If you're a working woman feeling burned out, it's not because you're weak or not resilient enough or bad at time management. The science shows this is a systemic crisis with biological, psychological, and social roots. Your exhaustion is real. Your stress is valid. And the solution isn't just self-care, though that matters. The solution is structural change combined with personal boundaries. At Capella Wellness, we believe in evidence-based well-being. Understanding the science behind burnout is the first step to addressing it, both individually and collectively. If this resonated with you, please like this video and share it with the working women in your life. Let's start conversations that lead to real change. Take care of yourself. You deserve it. And remember, wellness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity.